My name is Suzanne Phelps, and I'm the same age as in the original story. I work as an operations analyst for a regional bank. It sounds boring because, honestly, most days it is. I stare at spreadsheets, reconcile reports, flag transactions that do not belong, and look for patterns other people miss. That is my job. Patterns. Small details. The thing that repeats until it stops looking like coincidence. I did not know then that the same skill I used at work would become the thing that protected my boyfriend. Ryan and I had been together for 9 years. We were not dramatic people. We had bills, routines, a mortgage, and a quiet rhythm that made our life feel safe. He was the morning person. I was not. His alarm went off at 5:15 4 days a week, and by 5:45 he was at the gym. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Same gym for almost 3 years. Same parking spot if he could get it. Same machines. Same playlist. Same protein shake waiting in the fridge when he got home. I went to that gym too. But later, around 6:30 in the evening after work. We almost never overlapped. He liked the empty morning floor. I liked going after my brain had been beaten flat by spreadsheets. It worked for us. Then, about 4 months before everything changed, Ryan came home from a Tuesday session and mentioned a woman had tried to talk to him. She asked if I needed a spot, he said, pouring coffee like it was nothing. Then she made small talk about the playlist. What did you say? I told her I had a girlfriend. He smiled a little and lifted his phone. Showed her our picture. I laughed because it sounded harmless. Awkward maybe. Annoying maybe, but harmless. 2 days later, she approached him again. Same bright smile. Same forced casualness. She asked what he was training. Ryan gave her a one-word answer, put his earbuds back in, and turned away. She stood there for another minute before finally walking off. She probably just doesn't read signals well, he said that night. Just keep me posted, I told him. At that point, I still thought most people took rejection once it became clear. I was wrong. The following week, she found him during his warm-up on the bikes. This time, Ryan was direct. I'm not interested in talking. I'm here to work out. I already told you I have a girlfriend. She raised both hands like he had insulted her. Whoa, I'm just being friendly. Then she walked away, leaving him feeling like he had somehow been rude for protecting his own space. That bothered me. Not enough to step in. Not yet. But enough that I asked what she looked like. Mid-30s, he said. Brown hair, average height, always wearing the same kind of fitted workout tops. Nothing really distinctive. Just a woman you wouldn't notice unless she kept appearing. That last part stuck. Ryan did not need rescuing. He handled pressure better than most people I knew. He had dealt with pushy clients, drunk strangers, difficult relatives, all without losing control. If he said he could handle it, I believed him. So I stayed quiet and let him handle it. Until the pattern became impossible to ignore. By week 4, she was waiting near the water fountain. Not drinking, not filling a bottle. Just standing there like she had timed his route. When Ryan walked past, she said, "You look good today." He ignored her. Then she started drifting near whatever machine he used next. Not close enough to make a scene. Close enough to make him aware of her. He moved from cables to leg press, and within minutes she was nearby. He moved again, and so did she. That morning, Ryan cut his workout short by 15 minutes. When he told me why, his voice changed. I felt like I was being watched. Watched. I heard that word all night. Lying in bed beside him, I replayed every detail he had told me. The first approach, the second, the fake innocence, the guilt trip, the waiting, the following. My mind started arranging it all the way it arranged suspicious entries at work. Not one incident, a sequence, a pattern. I asked him the next morning if he wanted me to come with him. He shook his head. If she does it again, I'll talk to the front desk. I nodded. Okay. Then she disappeared for a week. No approaches, no waiting, no awkward comments. Ryan thought maybe she had moved on or changed gyms. We relaxed. We had dinner at his older sister's house that Saturday, and for a few days the whole thing slipped into the background like a weird story we would eventually laugh about. Then Tuesday came. Ryan walked in after the gym and did not stretch in the living room like usual. He did not joke about traffic. He went straight to the sink and stood there with both hands on the counter. "What happened?" I asked. He swallowed. "She touched me." Everything in me went still. "She came up behind me while I was doing cable rows," he said. "Put her hand on my lower back like she was correcting my form. Then she grabbed my arm." "What did you do?" I stepped away and said, "Don't touch me," loud enough that people looked. "And she?" Ryan looked at me, jaw tight. She laughed and said, "Relax, I was helping." For 10 seconds, I said nothing because I did not trust my own voice. Anger rose so fast it scared me. But Ryan was watching me, and I knew if I exploded, the story would stop being about what she had done and become about how I reacted. So I breathed. Then I said, "I'm coming Thursday." He hesitated. "I don't want a scene." "There won't be one." Thursday morning, my alarm went off at 5:10, which felt personally offensive. I drove separately and entered 5 minutes after Ryan. I wore a cap I never wore, kept my distance, and set up near the free weights while he went to the machines. She did not show. Saturday, she did. She walked in around 6:15 like she owned the floor. Brown hair pulled back, gray workout top, confident smile. She spent 10 useless minutes on a treadmill, then migrated toward Ryan. He was doing lateral pull-downs with earbuds in. She stepped behind him and said something. He removed one earbud, shook his head, and looked forward. She kept talking. Then she touched his arm. Ryan pulled away instantly. I set my dumbbells down and crossed the floor, slowly, calmly, no shouting, no drama. I stopped beside them and looked directly at her. "He has told you no multiple times," I said. "This is the last time." She stared at me, then at Ryan, then back at me, and she laughed, not nervous, not embarrassed, amused. "Who are you?" she said. "His mom?" I did not answer. I turned to Ryan. "Let's go to the front desk." He nodded. As we walked away, I could feel her eyes on our backs. The manager was there this time. His name was Phil, mid-40s, calm, professional, and visibly unhappy by the time Ryan finished explaining. We told him about every approach, every ignored boundary, the unwanted touching, the first report that had gone nowhere. Ryan stayed steady. I filled in dates and details because that was what I did best. Phil pulled up membership records and asked for a description. Then he said he would review the cameras, speak to the morning staff, and file a formal incident report. I asked for a written complaint form. He gave us one. We filled it out together. Before leaving, I took a photo of it on my phone. Then I noticed the harassment policy posted near the locker rooms. Unwanted physical contact, repeated unwanted approaches, intimidation, grounds for membership revocation. I read every word twice, because by then, I already knew. This was not over. 3 days later, Phil called Ryan while we were eating dinner. "They reviewed the footage," he said after hanging up. "She's banned." He looked almost relieved saying the words. Phil had confirmed that management reviewed multiple camera angles, interviewed the employee who had received Ryan's first complaint, and compared it with our written report. The gym revoked her membership immediately. No warning, no suspension. Membership terminated. Phil also explained that her information had been flagged, so she couldn't simply sign up again under the same account. For the first time in weeks, Ryan smiled without forcing it. "Maybe that's the end of it." "I hope so," I answered. For a while, it actually looked like we had been right. Ryan returned to his usual morning routine. I went back to evenings. Breakfast conversations stopped revolving around the woman. The tension slowly dissolved from our home. He started stretching in the living room again while music played from his phone. I caught myself believing we had simply experienced an unpleasant chapter that had finally closed. It hadn't. About a week later, I finished my evening workout and walked toward my car around 7:45. The parking lot was half full. As I unlocked my vehicle, something made me stop. She was there, not inside the gym, not exercising. She was sitting on the hood of a car 2 spaces away, staring down at her phone. For a second, she looked up. Our eyes met. Neither of us spoke. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. Her expression was completely flat, almost emotionless, as though she had expected me to notice her. I unlocked my car, climbed inside, and drove away without acknowledging her. The moment I pulled into our driveway, I texted Ryan, "She's here, outside the gym." When I walked inside, he had already read it. "Are you sure it was her?" "I'm sure." He frowned. "But she was banned." Exactly. That was the problem. Why return to a place where you were no longer allowed? The question stayed with both of us. Over the next several days, I deliberately drove past the gym after work. Nothing. Friday, nothing. Saturday morning, Ryan went at his usual time while I followed 10 minutes later in my own car. Nothing again. I started convincing myself maybe I had misunderstood what I'd seen. Maybe she had been waiting for someone else. Maybe she simply parked nearby. People did strange things. Not everything meant danger. Then, the following Wednesday, at exactly 6:03 in the morning, my phone vibrated. Ryan. "She's here." I called him immediately. "I'm still inside my car," he whispered. "Her blue sedan is parked 3 spaces away from me." "You stayed inside?" "Yes." "Good." He described the vehicle perfectly. Dark blue, dent on the rear bumper, a faded air freshener hanging from the mirror. She was sitting behind the steering wheel, doing absolutely nothing, just waiting. "Drive across the street," I told him immediately. "Go to the gas station, don't get out." He started the engine. "I'll meet you there." Before leaving the house, I called the gym. Phil hadn't arrived yet, but I left a detailed voicemail explaining exactly what Ryan had seen. Then I grabbed my keys. Every red light seemed determined to delay me. By the time I reached the gas station nearly 20 minutes later, Ryan was waiting beside his car with a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. "She left about 10 minutes ago," he said quietly. "You okay?" He nodded. "I'm just tired." I believed him. But I also knew exhaustion wasn't the real problem anymore. The uncertainty was. That afternoon, sat at our kitchen table with my laptop. Ryan watched silently as I opened a blank document. "What are you doing?" "What I always do." I started building a timeline. Every conversation, every unwanted approach, every date, every approximate time, every witness, every report, every piece of evidence. I included screenshots of our text messages, photos of the complaint form, notes about where each incident happened inside the gym, copies of Phil's emails. By midnight, the document had grown into several organized pages. Ryan leaned over my shoulder. "You've turned this into an investigation." I looked at him. "No, I've turned it into evidence." The next afternoon, we called the non-emergency police line. The officer listened carefully while I summarized everything from the beginning. He asked several questions. "Any direct threats?" "No." "Any physical violence?" Repeated unwanted touching after being told not to. "Has she attempted contact outside the gym?" "Only by appearing where she knows Ryan will be." He suggested we come to the station to file formal statements. So we did. I carried a folder containing everything. Timeline, complaint forms, photos, texts. Ryan gave his statement first. Then I gave mine. The officer spent nearly 90 minutes reviewing our documents. When he finished reading the timeline, he actually looked impressed. "I don't usually receive complaints organized like this." I smiled faintly. I work with data. It shows. He explained that there wasn't enough for a criminal arrest based on what had happened so far. However, the repeated unwanted contact, the documented touching, the gym's investigation, the membership revocation, the parking lot appearances afterward, together they established a clear behavioral pattern. A civil restraining order, he said, would be a reasonable next step. On the drive home, Ryan stared through the passenger window. Finally, he spoke. Maybe the police report is enough. You think she'll stop? I don't know. Neither of us answered for several miles. That evening, we ate dinner in almost complete silence. Halfway through the meal, Ryan finally set his fork down. I don't want to spend months in court. I don't either. I don't want this becoming our life. I reached across the table and took his hand. This already became our life the moment she decided your no didn't matter. He lowered his eyes. You're right. A long pause filled the room. Then he squeezed my hand. Okay. We file. The following morning, I returned to the gym and met Phil in his office. I asked whether management could provide written confirmation of everything that had happened. He hesitated. I need approval from ownership. I understand. 2 days later, an email arrived. Official gym letterhead. Formal language. It confirmed repeated harassment complaints involving a female member, documented investigations, and the permanent revocation of her membership due to violations of the facility's harassment policy. Exactly what we needed. I attached the letter to the petition, printed the timeline, included the police report, added every screenshot, every document, every date. Then I walked into the courthouse and filed for a restraining order. Now all we could do was wait. The waiting turned out to be the hardest part. Once the paperwork was filed, everything slowed down. The court had to process the petition, the other party had to be served, a hearing had to be scheduled. Meanwhile, life kept moving, even though it felt like we were living with an invisible clock counting down towards something neither of us wanted to face. Ryan eventually returned to his morning workouts, but he changed one thing. Instead of arriving at 5:45, he started going at 6:15. I'd rather there be more people around, he admitted. I understood completely. Every Saturday, I went with him. We still drove separately and entered a few minutes apart, just in case. Neither of us wanted fear to take over our lives, but we also refused to pretend nothing had happened. About 11 days after filing, the temporary restraining order was granted. Neither of us had to appear for that decision. The judge reviewed the documents and approved temporary protection while we waited for the final hearing. The order required her to remain at least 200 feet away from Ryan, from me, from our home, our vehicles, and the gym. No direct contact, no messages, no contact through another person. When the process server confirmed she had been officially served, I felt the first real sense of relief in months. It wasn't over, but now there were consequences if she ignored another boundary. 3 weeks later, we walked into the courthouse together. Ryan wore the navy suit he usually saved for weddings. I carried the same organized folder that had been growing on my computer since the day she appeared in the parking lot. Ryan's cousin, an attorney who mostly handled corporate cases, agreed to represent us as a favor. He flipped through my binder before the hearing and smiled. I've had clients bring me napkins with handwritten notes. He looked up. This is considerably better. I smiled nervously. I organize things when I'm stressed. Keep doing that. Across the courtroom, she sat alone. No lawyer, no stack of documents. Just a slightly oversized button-down shirt and an expression that no longer resembled the confidence she had worn at the gym. For the first time since this began, she looked uncertain. When the hearing started, our attorney calmly presented everything. The timeline, the written complaint, the gym's harassment policy, the surveillance review, the official letter confirming her membership had been revoked, the police report, screenshots of Ryan texting me from the parking lot. Every piece of evidence fit neatly into the next. There were no dramatic surprises, no emotional speeches, just facts. Ryan testified first. His voice remained steady. He described every unwanted conversation, every time he clearly said no, every occasion she ignored his boundaries, every instance of unwanted physical contact. Then it was my turn. I explained what I had witnessed personally. I described finding her in the parking lot after she had already been banned. I explained why I created the timeline. The judge asked several questions. I answered each one directly. No exaggeration, no assumptions, only facts. Then she was allowed to speak. She folded her arms and sighed dramatically. I was only trying to be friendly. The judge remained expressionless. She continued. People are too sensitive these days. Ryan didn't react. Neither did I. She insisted she never realized Ryan felt uncomfortable. Our attorney quietly opened the complaint file. He told you he had a girlfriend. Silence. He told you he wasn't interested in talking. Silence. He told you not to touch him. She shifted in her chair. I was just helping him. The judge looked over her glasses. If you were simply being friendly, why did the gym permanently revoke your membership? She hesitated. I don't know. The judge turned another page. Why were you sitting in the parking lot of a gym where you were no longer permitted to enter? She blinked. I was waiting for someone. For whom? Another pause. I don't remember. The courtroom became completely quiet. The judge glanced toward the gym's written statement, then back at her. One appearance might be coincidence. He tapped the police report. Repeated appearances, following documented unwanted contact and a membership revocation, are not. She lowered her eyes. The judge spent several minutes reviewing the paperwork before finally speaking. The court finds that the documented pattern of repeated unwanted contact, physical touching after clear verbal objections, and continued presence following revocation of gym privileges establishes sufficient grounds. He looked directly at her. A 1-year restraining order is granted. She was ordered to remain at least 200 feet away from Ryan, from me, from our home, our vehicles, and the fitness center. No communication, no indirect contact, no appearing at locations she knew we regularly visited. Violation would become a criminal matter. She never looked at either of us again. When we walked out of the courtroom, neither Ryan nor I spoke. The elevator ride felt strangely peaceful. Outside, warm sunlight filled the courthouse steps. Ryan finally reached over and squeezed my hand. Neither of us needed words. For the first time in months, we could breathe. Life slowly settled back into normal. 5 weeks passed. No phone calls, no parking lot sightings, both surprise encounters. Ryan returned to his original 5:45 schedule and actually admitted one morning, I forgot how much I missed working out before sunrise. I returned to my evening sessions. Phil greeted me with nothing more than a quiet nod. That simple gesture somehow meant more than a long conversation ever could. A few of Ryan's fellow morning regulars eventually asked where the woman had gone. He simply replied, She isn't a member anymore. One woman named Carol quietly pulled him aside after a workout. I noticed she kept following you weeks ago, she confessed. I almost said something. Ryan thanked her. Later that evening, he told me, I wish someone had. I know, but at least someone noticed. At home, life found its rhythm again. Ryan still teased me for going to the police station wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie straight from the gym. You looked like you were filing legal paperwork between cardio sets. I laughed. Not exactly my most professional appearance. Sometimes I still wondered whether I should have gone with him sooner, whether I should have recognized the danger before week 6. Ryan always answered the same way. You trusted me to handle it first. I did. And when I couldn't anymore, he smiled softly. You were there. I believed him. Still, every now and then I caught myself glancing toward the gym parking lot as I drove past after work. Old habits die slowly. Our attorney later explained that if she ever violated the order, or if we had reason to believe the behavior would resume, we could petition to extend it beyond the first year. Without saying a word, I created another folder on my computer, just in case. Because patterns matter. Documentation matters. The thing I still remember most isn't the courtroom. It isn't the paperwork. It isn't even the judge granting the order. It's her laugh. That moment when Ryan calmly told her to stop, and she laughed as though his boundaries were a joke. She thought patience meant weakness. She thought persistence meant entitlement. Instead, her choices cost her a gym membership, a court order, and the freedom to come anywhere near us for an entire year. If there's one lesson this experience taught me, it's this. You don't have to wait until someone becomes violent before protecting yourself. Repeatedly ignoring someone's clear no is already serious. Write everything down, save every message, record every date, find witnesses, trust patterns. Sometimes the strongest response isn't yelling. Sometimes it's simply walking into court with a folder full of facts.